Section 1.8 talks about using substitution to evaluate algebraic expressions and formulas. So let's see what it is we're going to be doing here. Okay, the first problem says to evaluate. Anytime I see these problems that say to evaluate, I like to call these problems plug and chug, okay? I'm going to explain why I'm going to do that. In every one of these problems, it's going to give me an expression. It's going to have a variable. That variable could be x, could be y, any letter that they're going to have there, and they will give me a value for that letter. For instance, let's look at the first problem. Evaluate negative 5x minus 6 tells me that x is the number 6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plug my number 6 into my expression. According to the order of operations, I need to be doing my multiplying first. Negative 5 minus 6 is a negative 30 minus 6. So let's think about this. I owe you $30. I borrow 6 more. Now I owe you 36. Okay. Let's try the next one. I'm going to go through the same process. Now it's telling me that y equals negative 6. So I'm going to write my expression 5x, or 6 times y. Now where my letter y used to be, I'm going to put the number negative 6. Because I have a fraction, I want to think of my number negative 6 as a fraction. So I'm going to think about it as negative 6 over 1. Okay? Minus 5. So we have a couple options here. I'm just going to go ahead and multiply straight across. That's going to give me a negative 30 over a positive 6 minus 5. When we divide these numbers, negative 30 divided by positive 6 is a negative 5 minus another 5. So I owe you $5. I borrow 5 more. Now I owe you 10. Okay. Let's try the next one here. So I'm going to write 5. I'm going to think of this 5 as 5 over 1, simply for the reason that when I'm plugging in my number x in, my number x is a fraction. Okay. So we multiply straight across. That's going to give me a negative 15 over 2, okay, plus 15 over 1. I now need to find a common denominator. Well, between 2 and 1, it's going to be 2. I'm not changing this 2 here, so I'm not going to change that 15 there. We're multiplying this number here by 2, so we're going to multiply this number here by 2. That gives us a 30. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at the top part. I owe you $15. I have 30. After I pay you the 15 that I owe you, I will still have 15. Okay. This is why I call these problems plug and chug. You're taking your number, you're plugging it in, and then you're sort of chugging along, doing whatever operation it's asking us to do. Okay. All right, let's try the next one here. 3 minus 5x, x is equal to 8. So I'm going to write down 3 minus 5, x is now the number 8. Okay. We're going to multiply. 5 times 8 is going to give us 40. Okay. Let's think about this. I have $3, but I owe you 40. If all I have is 3 and I owe you 40 and I give you the $3 that I have, I still owe you 37. Okay. All right, let's try the next one here. So we're going to go 6.3 minus 3 times x. X is the number 2.3. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to grab my calculator. Here we go. Okay, let's move it over here to the side. I need to multiply those two numbers first. 3 times 2.3 equals 6.9. So right here I'm going to write 6.3 minus 6.9. Okay. I'm going to come back to my calculator. I'm going to punch my numbers in. 6.3 minus 6.9, negative 0.6. And we are done. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here. X squared plus 3x, x is equal to 4. Okay, so I'm going to write my numbers with parentheses anytime I have squares. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. 4 squared is 16. 3 times 4 is 12. And we add them together, that gives us a total of 28. Okay. Let's try the next one here. Negative 5. We're going to plug in 3 to the third. Remember, according to order of operations, I need to do this part first. Just sort of a little quick side note here. Remember what 3 to the third means. 3 to the third means 3 times 3 times 3. Well, that's 9 times 3. That's going to give me 27. So negative 5 times 27. So let's see. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 3 more is 13. And a negative times a positive is a negative, right? Okay. All right, the next one we got here, again, we're going to plug in x equals negative 3. So 18 plus 3, negative 3 squared. 18 plus. Again, just think about this for a minute. Okay. Remember, there's parentheses here. Negative 3 times another negative 3. A negative times a negative is a positive. So this is 3 times 9. That's going to give us 18 plus 27. And when we add those two numbers together, we end up with 45. Okay. Alrighty. Grab another color here. Let's go back to black. Okay, so let's see. 5 minus 9. Now look at the number I'm plugging in. I'm plugging in a fraction, right? 1 over 3 squared. Okay. So let's see. Maybe I'll think about this 9 is 9 over 1 because I do have a fraction here. So 1 over 3 squared. 1 squared is 1. 3 squared is 9. Okay. Guys, remember what we said we can do? We can cancel numbers on the top with numbers on the bottom. So 9 both goes into 9 one time. So now we're going to have 5 minus, let's multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is also 1. Okay. We're almost done. 1 divided by 1 is still 1. And finally, 5 minus 1 just gives us 4. Okay. Alrighty. So for the next one we have here, I want you to notice we actually have two variables. We have A and we have B. So for the A, I'm going to plug in the number 1 to the third plus 2. Where we have the number B, we're going to plug in the number negative 4 minus 4. So let's look at the first part here, 1 to the third. Remember what 1 to the third means? It means 1 times 1 times 1. Well, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 1 is still 1. That's going to be a 1 right here. Okay. 2 times negative 4, negative 8, okay, minus 4. I'm just going to go left to right. I have $1 and I owe you 8. I owe you 7. Okay. Minus 4. If I owe you $7 and I borrow 4 more, now I owe you 11. Okay. Alrighty. So we got a couple more problems here. It says use the formula C equals 5 over 9 F minus 32 to find the Celsius temperature. So let's take a look. It says dry ice is a solid carbon dioxide. Dry ice does not melt. It goes directly from the solid state to a gaseous state. Dry ice changes from a solid to a gas at 109.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Excuse me, negative 109.3 degrees Fahrenheit. What is this temperature in Celsius? Let's take a look. So my first step here, by my pen, okay, C equals 5 over 9. The number we're going to plug in for F is a negative 109.3. Okay. Now it says minus 32. Okay. So on my calculator, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this part right here. So let me grab my calculator. Let me clear it out. 109.3. Got to make sure it's negative. Minus 32 equals negative 141.3. So C equals 5 over 9 times negative 141.3. Okay. Now, guys, because I do have a decimal here, I'm going to go ahead and use everything in decimals. So my next step, let me go ahead and multiply it by 5, and then we'll divide it by 9. So we're going to go times 5 equals, divided by 9 equals negative 78.5, okay? Negative 78.5. So that's our temperature in Celsius, okay? Let's go ahead and scroll down to the next problem. So it says, temperature extremes on the moon. The results of measurements made by NASA with the lunar orbiter shows that the coldest temperature recorded on the surface of the moon was negative 238 degrees Celsius. The warmest temperature recorded on the surface of the moon was 123 degrees Celsius. What are the corresponding temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit? Okay, so I want us to think about this. It's actually asking us to do two problems here. The first time we're going to plug in this number, and then the second time we're going to plug in this number. So I'm going to do this sort of in two pieces, okay? Part A. Let's use this number here. So I'm going to write F equals 9 over 5 times my number for C, negative 238, okay, plus 32. Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take my calculator, and just like we did earlier, I'm going to write 238. I want it to be negative. I'm first going to multiply it by 9, and then I'm going to divide it by 5, negative 428.4. So negative 428.4, okay, plus 32. So now I'm going to take my calculator. I'm just going to add 32 degrees to it. Okay. And if you notice, the number that I'm coming up with is negative 396.4. Okay. So now, let's do this problem all over again, part B. But now we're going to plug in the number 123, okay, plus 32. So just like we did earlier, I'm going to grab my calculator. Let me clear this out. Take my number 123. I'm going to multiply it by 9. I'm going to divide it by 5. And I'm coming up with 221.4. So 221.4. Now we're just going to add 32 degrees to that. Let me grab my calculator again. Plus 32. And we're coming up with 253.4. And that is section 1.8, evaluating expressions.